Welcome to the sound of one man clapping. I am the one man coming to you direct from the bunker. I'm catching up on my mini painting this week, so it looks like the assault on Minas Tirith in here, and if you got that reference, we can definitely be friends. This is a podcast about board gaming culture, and growing old gracelessly. Today we're going to look at some of the games I played over the last week, and my thoughts on those. We're going to touch on what's coming in with incoming! 4 exclamation points. We're going to make me feel better about my life choices with FOMOMOFO, and we're going to, of course, give someone the clap. My apologies for that horrific slip of the button last week. That soundbite was a complete and utter accident. That will most definitely, probably, hopefully, never happen again. Although it probably will. We're currently working through a limited series of my favorite things, one episode at a time, and this week we'll be looking at the warm, loving, rabbit hole embrace of deluxe components. Love them, hate them, or ambivalent, they're definitely here to stay. Now more than ever, and these devilish little upgrades are directly related to FOMO in all their little dopamine-punching glory, and I freaking love them. Also, we currently have 15 dedicated clappers on Facebook, and according to analytics, we officially have 11 subscribers of the pod. Congrats to all of you. You can always tell people you heard it first. Everyone loves a gatekeeper. Now on to my favorite part of the show, the games of this week. This week I got in a game of Teotihuacan, the Deluxe Edition, with Super Trooper. It was, of course, his brand new hot-off-the-press copy. And the horrible insert aside, this is a great game. There's lots going on with Teotihuacan if you haven't played. Lots of paths to victory. Super Trooper Dusty and I played together. We each took completely different routes through the game. There were no ties that night, which is great. But it was a great game. We made a rule mistake regarding cacao. We never make rules mistakes. It was really an aberration. Never, ever, ever do we make rules mistakes. But we do love making a game harder than it needs to be in my group. At least we were all suffering together. I've only played once before, and I remember my first game being a bit of a slog. It took 3 or 4 rounds of the board to really have any understanding of the timing and the tempo and how that sort of impacts everything. This is a much better game for me, and I had a great time. I was pretty early in my modern board game renaissance when I played the first time. That was before Anachrony, before my first Lacerda, before my first Older Woman. Wait, that's not right. Sorry. Back that up. Let's talk about Teotihuacan. It's by Danielle Tascini and published by Board and Dice with art by Odysseus Stamoglu. And in Teotihuacan, you're going round and round the board. It's kind of a rondel. Doesn't look like a rondel. It's more of a great big oblong that you're transversing around. Each spot has different stops that you can accomplish different things. Usually spending your hard-earned cacao and fighting for supremacy in each space. Because if you are second there, it costs you dearly. If you are third there, you have to carve out a kidney and sacrifice it to the gods. I had a great time. It was a new relearning because we hadn't played Teotihuacan in probably well over a year, probably 2 years actually. But this new set is really, really swanky. Lots of UV spot on the board, lots of beautiful components, lots of chunky bits and pieces. Terrible insert. Have I mentioned the insert? Later that night we played Quest for El Dorado. Not the question. Thank you, Dana, for keeping me honest. I do love autocorrect. We played with quite a few expansions, and the map we played was a really interesting, challenging one. Lots of crocodiles, which I had not worked through before. Lots of demon spaces. And for El Dorado, it was quite a long game by El Dorado standards. Dusty got bailed up with a few knockbacks, which were freaking hilarious. Super Trooper just kept absolutely fisting him, and it was hilarious for the rest of us, not for Dusty. He still won, don't get me wrong. He still kicked our ass all over the table. And it was a great time. Love Quest for El Dorado. Shout out to Tapio. We played a great game of Quest for El Dorado with Tapio at PlayCon. And it will remain to be probably my favorite race game. This is, of course, by the ever-present Dr. Knizia with art by Vincent Dutray and published by Ravensburger. If you haven't played it, play it. Quest for El Dorado is fantastic. It is definitely not called The Question for El Dorado. We also got in, later that day, a 2-player game of Bitoku. I love me a bit of Bitoku. The board looks like you've spewed on it, but it is just packed full of color, packed full of art. The cards are packed full of art, and that art is spectacular. My only complaint is there's one of the sets of cards, they spend the entire game completely invisible because they're overlaid by another set of cards. That aside, it's a beautiful game. It's very tactile. There's a million tokens. There's a million pieces that you have to fiddle with. It's very point salad-y. You know, you've got to get your dice workers out. You've got to get them over the river. You've got to collect 3 different sets of cards. 3 different sets of cards. You're trying to walk your pilgrims up the path. You're trying to march your your main person down his little Ikuru road. I may have that word wrong. I'm sorry, Japan. You're collecting rocks, which score points. You're collecting dragonflies and spirits, which are getting together in some weird little Kama Sutra mode to make extra points. I love Bitoku. It's so fun. The dice are great. There's no rolling. You got dice workers. The pips on them are the strength of the workers. They go up, they go down. You're fighting for bits and pieces. Even at 2 players, Bitoku's great. That Bitoku's by Herman P. Milan, published by De Veer, who are absolutely killing it in this midweight space over the last few years, with art by Duvals. Slotted in a quick game of Nar, or Kanar, or Kanarar, or Nar. Maybe it's piratey, because they're Vikings. Because Vikings were pirates, right? Maybe it's Nar. Nar's a quick little filler. It takes about 20-25 minutes. You're collecting cards. You're building an engine that runs itself over and over again based on color. You're raiding out to different camps and bringing stuff back and building icons and building income. Look, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be Vikings. It could be pole dancers. It could be, you could put anything on Nar, but the gameplay's great. It's really great. There's 2 or 3 little decisions you got to make every turn. That's it. The turns are really snappy. The game itself is really snappy. Super Trooper got a great first couple of turns. It built an engine that I just spent the whole game chasing. I had to completely give up on one path to points and work on another. He did win, but I do love Nar. Nar's great. Nar's by Thomas Dupont. My copy is the German one, published by Spiele, which means I have to download the rules every single time we want to play, because my rules are in German, and my German is really shithouse. And the art is by Carillon Antoine. Nar's great. If you can get your hands on Nar, it's a great little filler, easy to teach, easy to learn, great one to take to cons. And later that week, I think it was the next day, no, that night, can't remember, it's all blurring together, got in a first game of Charterstone. Charterstone is a really cute little worker placement legacy game that's been sitting on my shelf of shame for about 1.5 years. We got that to the table with Super Trooper and the Fox and Buttercup. Welcome to the podcast, Buttercup. Charterstone starts off really, really basic. It's almost not a game the first game you play. You're putting workers out, you're bringing workers back, you're farming a few cards, you're unlocking a few boxes. The art's gorgeous. The basic game comes with these really chunky, beautiful coins, wooden resources, and it was really fun. I think we were all sort of a couple of bottles of red in by that point of the night, so it was a great thing to finish the night on. Really looking forward to playing more Charterstone. I don't know how complicated it's going to be, but the table we've got for that particular game isn't looking for complex. We're looking for something fun and light that we can do exactly that. Super Trooper and Buttercup have played this one before, I think a couple of years ago, so hopefully it's a little bit of the new again. It's not so boring, but the Fox and I have not played this, and I think it's going to be good fun. It's about 10 to 12 sessions apparently, and when you're done, you've got a game you can keep playing if you so choose. And Charterstone is, of course, a Stonemaier game. I believe it was actually designed by Jamie Stegmaier, and the art's by Lena Cosette and David Frost. Charterstone is loads of fun. And then a couple days later, got in a game of Century Golem Edition with the Fox and the Peanut. Century Golem is a house favorite and my personal preference for playing Century. I played the original a few years ago with Super Trooper. Played it quite a few times with different people. But bought the Golem Edition to play with the Peanut. It is the prettiest way to play Century. Charming art in the Golem cards. Gorgeous, chonky, lustrous plastic gems replacing the wooden spice cubes. It's stunning to handle and play. The Peanut's very tactical with this one. She started off her first few games really just farming 1 or 2 cards and trying to do the best she could with that. Now she's holding the cards to her chest. She's picking clever cards to try and build a little engine. And she loves this game. In the end, there were only 4 points in it. The Fox beat us soundly, but that's only because you cleaned up with the coins. If you haven't played Century Spice Road or Century Golem, you're farming resources to buy a point card. It's that simple. It's really breezy. It's really easy. A game's 20-25 minutes. And if you get the right cards, they come with a little coin bonus. You get these chunky little coins. You're merchants. You're merchants selling spices. You're some sort of merchant wizard. I don't know in Century Golem. I don't know what the theme is. You're grabbing these gems to bring these golems to life. I don't know. I don't know. It's great. Whatever the theme is, it's great. The art's magnificent. Century Golems by Emerson Matsaushi and published by Plan B Games. There are a number of artists involved in this one, and the art is magnificent. And unfortunately, due to sporting conflicts for the Peanut, there was no Arkham Horror this week, so I'm no closer to finding out what is at the end of the road to Carcosa at this juncture. I'm no less terrified of what's waiting for us there, and having already rebuilt my character once from the ground up, I'm not holding out hope that it's going to be a magnificent finish at this point, but it's a load of fun. And those are the games I played. Not one solo game last week, but I have been painting minis all week, so I'm claiming that. I should probably start logging those sessions in BG Stats, because that's hours and hours. And I don't know if I win any of that either. My painting's pretty mid. Now on to my favorite part of the pod. Incoming! As usual, there's a constant stream of incoming games, either via pre-orders or crowdfunding at my place. And there's something deeply, innately, and viscerally satisfying about delivery day. The anticipation leading up to it. I confess, I've got the Australia Post app live on my phone 24/7, and the notifications there are like the bells and whistles on a freaking slot machine. Sure, there's other things that get delivered to my place, but that's the riddle. That's the suspense. The app goes, and I can't wait to see what's coming. Is it River of Gold? Or is it cat food from my geriatric incontinent ship machine, who I happen to love more than life itself? Don't get me wrong. Not everything that comes into this house to the front doorstep is board game related, but damn, it's a lot. How good would it be to get frequent flyer points on board game deliveries? I would be a squillionaire. On to the week that was. 3 games arrived last week. Ironwood is indeed in the house. This is a 2-player card battler, and the production is amazing. It does what it says on the tin. It's 2 players. It's the Woodfolk versus the Ironborn, and they play very differently. The components are amazing. Little wooden pieces and tokens for the Woodfolk. Chonky coins. There's a little steel drill mini for the Ironborn. I can't wait to get this one to the table. Having a quick look through some of the play. It's the same game. It's the same rules, but it's a completely different set of guidelines. It's a completely different set of structures over how the 2 factions work. And I'm looking at this as a little bit chunkier than maybe Watergate. It's the kind of game we might throw on the table and play once each way in a session. I also received River of Gold. I didn't know much about River of Gold other than it was getting good reviews and it looked gorgeous. I managed to pick it up for a song, and whenever I can trade board games for musical performances, I never say no. I popped that open this last week. The inside is so stunning. The insert is metallic gold. The board has gold inlay. It's sparkly everywhere. The chits are chunky. The rules look good. Again, I haven't looked at it in detail, but it's a very nice looking game. And I can't wait to get that to the table. And Bot Factory is in the bunker. While it's much lighter than the games I usually would choose, I think this one might get played by the Fox. It's very cute. And once she's played, I can say, so, you've technically played a Lacerda. Here's Lisboa. Go make 2 coffees, 1 for each hand, and saddle up. It's not the raunchiest fantasy I've ever had, but it's the one I voted most likely to never eventuate. So that's what's come in. And big news this week is Aeon Trespass Odyssey has started shipping. Aeon Trespass is easily the biggest game I've ever backed or invested in. It's the biggest game by weight. It's the biggest game by volume. It will be the biggest game by sheer commitment. But I absolutely love Greek mythology. I love the way it looks. The notion of playing this game half terrifies me and half excites me because it's going to be something that's going to be on and off the table for a very long time. Super Trooper has signed in blood to play this with me, at least the first cycle. I suspect he'll play the whole thing because that's kind of how he's wired. So I know I've got somebody who's going to suffer through with me. It has landed in Australia. It's technically incoming! 4 exclamation points. However, it could be anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks. And then it's going to be 2 to 4 weeks of painting the first minis and unboxing it. And then probably 6 hours of watching Paul Grogan videos, because apparently they're coming soon, on how to play. And then probably a night of fumbling through a Super Trooper on the 88-page rulebook before we get started. I can't wait. And I should also be seeing Undaunted Callisto 2200 shortly. I pre-ordered that a while ago. That was not ordered through crowdfunding for me at this point. And it should be shipping quite soon, I would think. I'm very much looking forward to this. I've never really been drawn to the Undaunted series simply because the whole war arena doesn't appeal to me as a theme. I do love me some sci-fi. And having had a look at this, the 2 factions right out of the box play very differently. They've got different units right from day one. And I think there's 80 pages of solo scenarios. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Still no sign of getting arts to the table. So OMC will be holding tryouts and interviews for new gaming friends in the coming weeks. 2 requirements: must love arcs, must love barbecued meat. That's the rules at my table. Now on to my favorite part of the show, FOMOMOFO, where we talk about my inner demons and the ever-clamoring need for acquisitionism and the eternal drive for more stuff. The zeal for more calyxes so I can get more games so I can play more games, in theory. I'm not convinced FOMO has been formally acknowledged as a disability, so for now, I'm parking with the rest of you still. As always, this is not an exhaustive list, merely those campaigns I'm watching closely, either because the games suit my play, they fill a need that's poorly filled, or they have pretty toys, sometimes all three. Last week I touched on a few games that had caught my attention. I'll likely touch on those again as they get closer to their closing date for their campaigns, as I'm still considering whether or not to throw money at them and wait 2 years, or just chill and wait for a retail release. It really depends on the crowdfunding exclusives. And so this week on FOMOMOFO, Cyberpunk 2077 has slipped past 5 million Australian dollars and climbing. I loved Cyberpunk. I played that on the next-gen Xbox. I had almost no problems with it when it released. Unlike most people, I had a great experience with Cyberpunk. I played it 3 times start to finish. Huge fan of the IP. I'm not one that sort of goes in for IP games much, but this is a game, clearly a board game, that is aimed at FOMOMOFOs, 100%. You know, like a lot of the CMON or Awaken Realms campaigns, and this is not CMON or Awaken Realms, and I'm not singling them out or pointing fingers or calling them out for bad behavior, but their campaigns all start the same. They go, here's this game, it's great, it's $79, look at it, and you go, yeah, that's a great game, that's great. And then a week later they go, oh, here's an add-on. It's another $50. You go, whoa, yeah, that's a nice add-on. They go, and then 3 days later, here's an add-on. It's $35. You go, yeah, that's a nice add-on too. Yeah, okay. And then by the end of the campaign, there's 27 add-ons, and it's, I don't know. Let's talk about Cyberpunk. You know, if you want the all-in now with everything, because clearly you can't just get the base game. It's not really a game to just get the base game that you were so happy with on day one of launch, that you looked at on day one and went, wow, that looks great. I could totally get into that. You couldn't possibly buy that now. Like, you can't. You're like, how could you do that? So the all-in is $450 Australian. You just let that sink in. $450 Australian is a lot for a board game. I mean, it's not. It's not 2024. I mean, I've got plenty of games that I've paid $300 or $400 for and love. Talking about you, looking straight at you, Castles of Burgundy Special Edition with all the bits. But $450 for Cyberpunk. Yeah, there's a lot. When you look at the all-in, there's a lot. There's like 93 expansions. Not 93, but there's a lot. There's a trillion really beautiful minis. Like really beautiful. I mean, they're all renders at this point, so who knows? This isn't a first-time game producer, so hopefully they're going to bring this one to fruition. It's a beautiful-looking bit of crowdfunding space. But ultimately, I personally look at it and I go, is that going to be better than playing Cyberpunk 2077 on a next-gen console? You know, I love board games. I go to board games for that tactile bit, for that deep immersion at the table. You know, I love stuff. We were talking about deluxification of games this week because I love that stuff. Right? My whole life is filled with that. I love it. But I don't know at this point. I mean, as I said, I'm still looking at it. I don't know if at this point that this is going to be one for me, simply because I don't know if it's going to actually be better than just playing Cyberpunk. I've only ever backed one digital IP to board game. That's coming out at the end of the year, and that's only because it's based on a game system and an IP that I absolutely adore. Thank you very much, Chip Theory Games. Betrayal of the Second Era, fulfilling soon. And I am a mental Skyrim fan. So I'm not convinced this is one for me, but I will be watching closely. And that's Cyberpunk, already past $5 million in climbing, so there's going to be no shortage of people who are loving that in the future. Second one I'm looking at this week in FOMOMOFO is Pest, Guilds of Thokaya. Pest is a quirky little independent game that I bought in the original crowdfunding. I'm staring at it. It's still sitting in plastic. It's a great looking game based on plague doctors roaming around the Dark Ages. It doesn't look anything like Pandemic, even though, you know, fighting plague sounds a little bit like it. It's very dark in color. It's very dark in theme. It takes up my whole table. And I have an ungodly large game table. It would take up the whole table to put it out. And it's a small indie producer. Guilds of Thokaya literally finishes. It'll be done by the time you hear this podcast, unfortunately, but they'll be open for late pledges. There's an expansion, and there's a correction output, as in there were some issues with the first printing. Some of the minis were not quite right. Some of the colors weren't quite right. So with this expansion, what they're actually doing is they're releasing a fix pack for the first game for $1. And if you pledge for anything else, you get that $1 back for free. And I love this sort of behavior from game producers, where they look at something and they go, yeah, It was fine, but we didn't get it quite right. So if you take this next level of gear, we're actually going to fix that for you for nothing. I recently received new drawbags for Wonderland's War. Wonderland's War is one of my favorite games. It's a bag builder, push your luck, war game set in the Alice in Wonderland universe. And the original drawbags that came out with it, they were all falling apart. And they were falling apart for a lot of people. And Druid City Games, big props to them. They literally just sent brand new bags to everyone. You had to fill in a form, but you didn't have to lodge a complaint. You didn't have to get involved. They just went, hey guys, these are crap. Send us your email and your address. We'll put you on the list. And everyone got brand new bags for nothing, which, to be honest, probably cost them the profit for their whole campaign. I can't imagine that they did much better than that. And so I love it when a small independent producer is really looking to go out of their way to make their customers happy. And that's what this company's doing. As I said, keep an eye on it. Pest Guilds of Thorkia. You can get the entire game that you missed out on the original crowdfunding. I'm going to pledge it, I think, not because I desperately want the expansion or desperately need the fixed pieces, but because this is a way for me to use my dollars to actually respect what crowdfunding started for board games and for small board game designers. I want to spend a little bit of money. I mean, it's not a little bit. It's about 150 Australian dollars. So it's not a tiny amount. That's for the expansion, the new deluxe pieces, the new big box, the new playmat that will come with it. But for me, it's dollars I'm spending that go to the right place. Don't get me wrong. I give plenty of money to Awaken Realms. I give plenty of money to CMON. I give plenty of money to big producers who go to crowdfunding and use it as a launch space. They don't need the crowdfunding. I give plenty of money to Mind Clash. I'm not calling these people out for bad behavior. As I said, it's a mechanic that suits them. It's a mechanic that suits me. I give plenty of money to them. Pledging for this is one of those ways that I can make sure that we don't see the death of small producers in the crowdfunding space. It's like the guys I talked about last week, the Gems of Iridesia, which is a one to watch. It's the March of the Ants. These are small producers. These are small designers who, while particularly with March of the Ants, this is a designer who's had big success with a big producer and a big publisher. This is a micro-published game. And so being able to throw some of those on my Kallax, which may not get as much play as, say, Deceased, which is coming next year, and I will play to death because I'm a mad Batman fan. Pest is something that I'm going to pledge for, and I'm going to get it into my games room because I want to see this whole industry move forward. So that's Pest. Now grab your ankles and cough, because the third one I want to talk about today is Puerto Rico by Awaken Realms. Go F yourself, Awaken Realms, and I say that with love. I have the Castles of Burgundy Special Edition, and it is magnificent. I love the Castles of Burgundy Special Edition. Do I need it? No! Do I love owning it? Yes! When I pull it out at PlayCon, did we get people standing around the table just ogling it? Yes! We literally had people walking up and asking if they could touch the game. I said, man, fill your boots. Here's some chunky pieces. The Puerto Rico Special Edition. Is Puerto Rico on the list of games that I'd like, yeah, man, I want to have Puerto Rico. Like, yeah. No. But holy moly, this version's been in my cart. It's been out of my cart. It's been in my cart. It's been out of my cart. I'm ultimately still on the fence. It is beautiful. Puerto Rico, it's a classic game. It's like number 47 or something on the BGG Top 100. Been around for a while. Super Trooper owns the old version of it. We've never played it, or I've never played it with him. I'm not saying he's never played it, but in all our years of gaming, we've never played Puerto Rico. However, I'd never played Castles of Burgundy before either, and I think we probably played that 10 or 12 times in the last 18 months. This game is gorgeous. They've got plastic ships with decks that slide in and out to hold different amounts of goods depending on player count. They've got plastic little crates of goods. They've got little workers. They've got the playmat that holds the buildings, the main buildings in the game that give you a 3D presence. They've got those chonky acrylic tiles that Castles of Burgundy just brought to life, and you throw them in the bag or wherever you're getting them from, and they just feel beautiful and make that beautiful clacking noise in your hand. And like most Awaken Realms games, they're offering 7-month stretch pay. So even though this is a $340 or $350 game, that's not even including shipping, which is probably going to cost me one of my internal organs. You spread it over 70 months. It's like $30 a month or $35 or $40 a month. So it's not even like real money. Like some of these games, like when I ordered down Trespass, I'd missed the crowdfunding. I went into late pledge. That was like, oh my God, I need to saw off a leg and sell it for parts. And I was happy to do so because it's the kind of game that I want to play. I don't know if there's $300 worth of game here. I can't say. Is there $300 worth of game in this crowdfunding space for Puerto Rico? I don't know, but man, does it look good. And I'll tell you what, when big companies like Awaken Realms come here and they go, look, we've got a $300 or a $400 or a $550 game, but we'll let you pay for it for the next 10 months. It makes it pretty hard to not pull the pin when you are a FOMOMOFO like me. It looks amazing. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with Puerto Rico. I'm still on the fence. I think I've still got a couple of weeks to decide. But I am a FOMOMOFO. And there's so much FOMO on right now. Essen's just around the corner in a couple of weeks. PAX Australia is only 3 weeks away, which I'm going to be at. I'll be doing some live grabs there with people and maybe a little bit of video. You might get a little bit of video out of me for the first time. OMC will be moving into the video space soon-ish. I can't give you a timeline on that. But there may be some video grabs. There will certainly be some live audio grabs there. Hoping to catch up with the team from Board Game Barbecue while I'm there and a couple of other people that I bumped into at PlayCon who will be making an appearance at PAX. And so it's crazy. And all the big releases come out in time with Essen. There's a lot. And there's a lot of really good stuff coming out in the next it's coming out in the next 2 to 3 weeks, whether we see it here in Australia or next year. I mean, Nucleum was released at Essen last year in the first week of October. I think it was March this year when we finally got it on our shores. But it's a great time. This August, September, October, November space is a great time for games. It's a hard time for my bank balance. So with that in mind, with FOMOMOFO, here's some campaigns that I'll be keenly watching for the remainder of the year. My wallet is going to need lube by the time this backing season is done. We're going to do this speed dating style. I'm going to blast through these with a few quick words on why they're important to me personally and where to find them, because this is a big part of the next 3 to 4 months for me, is what do I do? And this is really the plan for the next 12 to 18 months for incoming stuff. We plan it now, and we pay for it now, and that's our next year and a half of incoming! 4 exclamation points. So starting with Kickstarter, you can flag these now and keep an eye on them if you can get past the Kickstarter's amazing search bar. First up is Mad Kala. Mad Kala is a 2-player card battler in the realm of Wonderland's War. There's no definitive launch date yet, but with that Manny Tremblay art, I've watched a couple of quick videos on how to play. I'm not 100% sure it's for me, but I do love Wonderland's War, so I'll be watching that very closely. In the Unmatched series, Unmatched Adventures is coming out with a new box. Unmatched is a game that I can almost take or leave because it's a pretty light, breezy game. The game almost plays you more than you play the game, but man, it's a load of fun. And Unmatched Adventures came out last year, which is a more co-op sort of piece where you're fighting off larger bosses. Unmatched Adventures on October 1st is releasing a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles box. So that will be very, very hard for me to resist. I am Gen X. I am from the generation of go F your feelings. We grew up feral in the weeds, coming home only to feed in the dead of night, to only go out again in the morning. But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, man, that's right in that nostalgia space. So I'll be watching that one very closely. That's on Kickstarter October 1st. I may have said that, and I'll be watching it very closely because Donatello is the greatest turtle. Fight me. Also coming out on Kickstarter is the reprint of Flock Together with a new expansion. Flock Together is a co-op chicken survival game. And for that reason only, I so want to play this with the Peanut. You get chickens in these little spiral-bound books that level up as the game goes on. There's little challenges. It's not the kind of thing I think I'll be playing with Dusty and Super Trooper, but it's the kind of thing I can see us playing weekend with the Peanut. It looks like a blast. And the big one on Kickstarter coming up that I'm watching very closely is Avalon the Riven Vale, brought to you by the same team as Oathsworn. Oathsworn is a game I have ready. I'm waiting for the right moment for my gaming group. It's been punched. I've even played the first 2 missions to get a feel for it. It's really, really amazing. It deserves all the accolades it gets. And Avalon the Riven Vale is going to be coming out on Kickstarter on November 12th. That's a game. That's in Arthurian space. I also love the Arthurian space. Tainted Grail was one of my favorite campaign games, and that's all Arthurian and excellent. So that's Kickstarter. Moving over to GameFound. These are some campaigns I'm watching there out to the end of the year. Starting off with Cloudspire Harbinger. Oh my god, don't get me started on Chip Theory. Chip Theory has absolutely thrashed my wallet to death over the last 2 years. I fell down the Too Many Bones rabbit hole. I play Burn Cycle. They came out with 20 Strong, which is an amazing little solo system, and they've got new decks being added to that over and over and over. Cloudspire Harbinger is the finale to the Cloudspire system. There are, I believe, 3 new factions coming. There's going to be a 20-strong deck coming. That will be something that I will not be able to resist. I will be all in on that. Lands of Evershade is coming. This is the next installment from the team that brought us Tainted Grail and ISS Vanguard. And thank you very much to them for doing so. I loved both of those campaigns, played them start to finish without really taking them off the table. No launch date as yet, but this is the same writer, the same development, the same production team, and I'm very excited for that. And announced literally just yesterday by Mindclash, Revenant, which is a Voidfall-themed worker placement game. It's not by the original design team, but the art is by Ian O'Toole. The box art alone just makes me want to take all my clothes off and throw myself at the team. Not that that would do anything positive, let's be honest, but I'll tell you what, I am an absolute tart for Ian O'Toole's art. And if you've been listening at all, you know Voidfall's my favorite game. So I'm not sure yet whether this is going to be something that I back, but it's going to be in the very, very likely category. And a very mysterious teaser from Into the Unknown of Aeon Trespass Odyssey. They've got a very mysterious teaser that's been dropped for a new IP called Enormity. There's no info about this anywhere. Not in BGG, not on their website. The only place you can see it mentioned is in their updates for Aeon Trespass. Auspiciously, it looks like it takes place on a gigantic mothership of some sort. I don't know whether it's a huge campaign or whether it's a roguelite or what it is, but if it's anything following on the heels of the output that Into the Unknown has given us in the last 5 years with regards to Aeon Trespass and Kingdoms Forlorn, which is also shipping, you know it's going to be absolutely huge. I was looking at potentially selling a kidney for Sins of Heracles, which is the follow-up to Aeon Trespass, but I think I'll sit on both my PP makers for now, just in case I need one for Enormity. It won't likely deliver till 2048 anyway, and I'll probably be sliding into early onset dementia by then, but I'm still eagerly awaiting more info. And that's it for FOMOMOFO this week. Now on to my favorite part of the show, where we'd be talking about one of my most favorite things. Can I say favorite one more time? And that's Deluxification in games. So saddle up, because this fits into one of my own personal true inadequacies. I mean, loves. This is something I love. And that's Deluxification of games. I love me some metal coins, and need seldom comes into it. So we're going to go through a few categories here. Right? The first one is games that really need it or benefit from it for gameplay. Games like Anachrony. Anachrony is a great game. You can play the game, you can have a great game, you can have a great experience right out of the box with the base edition. You get those mechs. Oh, man. Those chonky mechs that you slide those little cardboard chits into and they stomp around the board. The board's not even that big. It's going to be one of the smallest game boards I own. But you pop those mechs out and they're so good. The Anachrony resource upgrades, the little water droplets. I'm almost thinking about buying a second set for Dune. And the metal cubes, the resource cubes. The little, I don't even remember what they're called. The little purple canisters that recharge your blink for fractions of time. The Anachrony upgrades, they're so beautiful. They're so beautiful. And they actually make the gameplay more immersive. Anachrony is a superb game. It's David Turksey's masterpiece, and it plays amazingly solo. But when you throw those mechs in there, and it just changes the game feel. It doesn't change the game, it changes the game feel, and all of a sudden you really are in that world where you've got to strap this mech on before you can go out into the space and do the thing. And it's brilliant. I think after a year and a half, I think I bought the mechs 14 months ago on a trip overseas, because you literally could not get them in Canada. I'm about to finish painting them this week, and having them painted in player colors actually it's just made me so happy. Wonderland's War is another one. Great game, right? It's a great game. You have the board and the cards, and you can have standees and little cardboard chits for your draw bag. I have the game that has everything, right? I've got the minis, and the minis model the art by Manny Tremblay. I've got those deluxe chips that go into your bag. And I think those have to be the best chips in the business. They're right up there with the iron clays for brass. They're so nice. And the art on the chips, the silkscreen art on the chips, matches the art in the game. And they've got a weight to them. They're not just plastic. I don't know what they are. They're a ceramic poly. I don't know what they are. They're chonky. They've got a great weight. when you're rattling them around in your draw bag, you know, that rattle and that push around in the bag, it adds to the suspense of the draw. You can feel them tumbling around your hand. The game is better. It's a more immersive, more engaging game when you've got Alice, who's that's my next painting project, the 43 minis from Wonderland's War, and you've got those little chips, and you've got this beautiful board presence, and I love it. These are games that I think are better games for the deluxe upgrades. Cthulhu Death May Die. You take all the minis out of that, and it's not even really a game, right? Like, the game is, Cthulhu Death May Die is ridiculous. It's, you piece some little map tiles together, you pull this box out that's got a scenario, it's got a very small subset of rules that you integrate into the core gameplay. And then you pull Haster out, and you pull his minions out, and you pull the people I play Cthulhu Death May Die solo, three-handed, and you've got, you know, the old dude with the shotgun, and the crazy kid with the flaming hands, and, like, they're ridiculous. But without the minis, it's fine. Cthulhu Death May Die, the game is fine, right? There's nothing wrong with the game, but you put all this over-the-top stuff on it, and all of a sudden you're on there, and something's on fire, and you're running for your life, and you've got your two actions, and you're running through a room that's on fire, and you take your fire tokens, your chunky little fire tokens. It's fantastic. And I think it's worth mentioning, you know, the two big boys, you know, Kingdom Death Monster and Aeon Trespass. You know, I've played very little bit of Kingdom Death Monster, and I have gone all in on Aeon Trespass. And the production on those, all the deluxe pieces, I've got the deluxe map tiles coming. I've got every mini you can get. I've got every tangible upgrade you can get, because I suspect this is going to be something that sits on the table for a long time. One, I want it to last. If I'm going to be spending 400 hours playing a game, I want the pieces to last till the end. And two, I want that immersion. You know, whether Super Trooper ends up playing the whole campaign with me, or we do the first cycle and I'm doing it on my own, or he gets busy and taps out, I want those pieces. Those minis, which aren't even minis, some of them are maxis. Like some of these monsters you're battling in ATO and Kingdom Death, they're massive. And painting them is going to be a joy, and putting them on the table is going to be a joy. And I think these games are actually better games for it. And that said, we got games that have no need whatsoever. Let's talk about Castles of Burgundy. Castles of Burgundy is a great game. The gameplay for Castles of Burgundy, it's a Stephen Feld classic. It's been around for I don't know how many years. I'm not going to look it up. You can look it up. Board Game Geek does that. I don't need to do that. But Castles of Burgundy has been around ages. I had not played Castles of Burgundy until I thought, well, I'm going to get this deluxe version because it looks amazing, and play Castles of Burgundy. And Castles of Burgundy is fantastic. The bits you get, the acrylic tiles, the huge player boards, the double-layered player boards, the double-layered vineyard that has 4 levels on it, the plastic display for your acrylic grape tiles, castle minis. It doesn't actually make the game any better. The gameplay does not change one bit. If anything, it might even slow the game down a little bit. Having to swap the red acrylic tile out for your red castle, I forget half the time. I do like having it on the table, right? Voidfall's another one. I love Voidfall. Voidfall is a masterpiece of a game. It almost takes as long to set up the game as it does to play the game. It's a hex. You build your map with the hexes, and then you've got to assemble the little stands for the ships, and you've got to get all the ships out and all the parts out and put them. You've actually got to put them together on the stands for each game. I mean, the base game comes with these little cardboard tokens that you load with little cubes. And to be honest, it would probably make for a faster, more nimble, more agile game. These sorts of things don't change the gameplay one bit. They don't detract from it, but they don't change it. They don't. I would call this, there's no need for these things. If you're looking at maybe getting Voidfall, and you're like, oh, do I want the Galactic Box? You want the Galactic Box if you're me, and you're sitting at the table, and you want the toys. Right? The Galactic Box does not make it a better game. It actually makes it probably a harder game to set up. It's very easy to see the board state, right? And that's one of the great things about all these things, the plastic harbingers and all the bits that you get that go with it, the void storms, all those sorts of things. It's probably the slightest bit easier to internalize the board state when it's set up, but it's negligible. Do you need the Galactic Box? Do you need the special edition of Castle of Burgundy? If you're me, you do, because It's not about having it. It's about the experience. It's one of the reasons I've struggled to play on Board Game Arena. Board Game Arena looks amazing. You've got everything on there. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of board games on there that allow you to play board games with somebody you're not even in the room with. For me, board games are the physical, tactile experience, and having the extra toys makes it a more tactile experience. And do you need it? No. Does it make the game better? Nope. But it makes my table nicer. And then, to be honest, there's games that you don't need it. You don't need deluxe stuff at all for. And they make deluxe stuff for just about every game you can get. And if they don't make it, you can get it on Etsy. And if it's not on Etsy, you've got somebody with a 3D printer who can generate STL files and do it for you. I've got one. I've got a couple of those. I know that my gaming group has a couple of those. This is not naming and shaming, guys. This is picking games where I don't regret having the deluxe version, but really it almost makes the game shittier. One is Mosaic the Colossal Edition. Mosaic is a great game. And I gotta be honest, I love owning the Colossal Edition, right? There are probably 700 pieces of plastic in that box, right? And setting the game up, Mosaic's a game that setting it up, it probably takes as long as Voidfall to set up without the meaty gameplay. And, even if you're putting 4 people on the game, it's only meant to be a 2-hour game, which is amazing. I mean, that's an achievement. But when you go and put a tile out for a town, for example, it takes you longer to find the plastic town than it does to take your turn. Does that mean I don't want it? No. But really, this is a game where you really, really don't need it. And the other one I'm going to pick on is a game I adore. That's Terraforming Mars. Super Troopers got the Terraforming Mars with literally everything. Every mini, the little plastic domes. If there is a deluxe piece for Terraforming Mars, Super Troopers got it in this big box. And it's beautiful to play with. But much like Mosaic, when you go and you're playing that city tile that matches the card, you've got the card for a specific city, and you've got to go hunting for that specific city mini, and then you've got to put it on the board. And to be honest, you don't spend a lot of time looking at the board in Terraforming Mars till the very end of the game. The board state is the board state. And yes, you're looking at eyeballing different places that you want to build or you want to drop a tile out because you get specific benefits. 9 times out of 10, I'm chasing the benefits on the tile, but not necessarily the end scoring. That's probably why I don't win very often. But I don't spend a lot of time with the board state in Terraforming Mars. I'm more looking at my tableau state for the cards. And again, I don't think that the deluxe stuff for Terraforming Mars makes it a better experience. Do I want to play without it? Nope. I don't, because that's just how I roll. I want it on the table. I want to spend 45 seconds looking for that little city piece, looking for that, for the nuclear explosion, for looking for the Deimos down square, whatever they are, right? Absolutely, I want to do it. It doesn't make it a better game. In fact, it probably makes it a slightly worse game for most people. For me, again, I love having a table presence. And I think there's one more category worth talking about, and that's the OTT stuff. Oh my God, there's some stuff, and I'm not even talking about stuff that doesn't need it. I'm going to talk about Andromeda's Edge, which is a game that just fulfilled. I've just got it to the table. Andromeda's Edge is a beautiful game, right? It's a great game to play. It's huge leaps and bounds above Dwellings of Eldervale. We've already talked about that. The production on this, the all-in deluxe edition, it's almost unrivaled. The quality of the minis is so beautiful. These little minis, which are 2, sometimes 3-toned with clear or translucent components. They're gorgeous. They're lustrous gold finish. The buildings that you build, that you slide your leaders into, are so detailed and so unnecessarily detailed. The board is monstrous. The pieces are amazing. The insert is beautifully built. It's so over the top. I'm gonna name a few here. Skyrise, another one that I've bought. It's sitting on my shelf for shame. I'm waiting to play. I actually think the Skyrise edition with the wooden buildings looks amazing. You've got 2 levels beyond that. You've got the one with the plastic buildings, then you've got the plastic buildings with the ink wash, and then you've got oh my God, and the player board for Skyrise is like 5 gargantuan chunks of things that you assemble first. My father's work. I managed to pick up my father's work at an auction, which made me so happy, because My Father's Work was a game that went to crowdfunding a couple years ago, and I looked at and I thought, that looks like a game that I would love to play. I can't afford it, because there's just so... Like, one of the resources in My Father's Work is, like, potion reagents. And the deluxe component is literally little glass bottles with corks in them. I mean, it is mental. It's mental and so over the top. You know, Frostpunk, another great example. Frostpunk's a great game. It's a board game based on a digital IP. I own Frostpunk. I forgot about that earlier when we were talking about IPs. I own Frostpunk. Frostpunk basically has a 14-inch tall dice tower that you toss teeny tiny 5mm by 5mm cubes in the hopes that they don't fall out. It could have been a quarter of the size. It could have been anything. But no, you've got a 14-inch plastic tower that you tumble these cubes in, but you tumble them in and you pray to an imaginary god going, please don't fall at the bottom. Please don't fist me and fall at the bottom. It's so unnecessary. Like, the production of that thing is so unnecessary. Anything by Chip Theory. Okay, and I'm going to put hand on heart. I'm a Chip Theory tart. I love Chip Theory games. I have almost everything Too Many Bones, including the Trove Chest. I have Hoplomachus Victorum, which is one of, I think, the greatest solo-only games ever made. I have most of Burn Cycle. I have Betrayal of Second Era coming. I really love Chip Theory games. There's more ecological terrorism in Chip Theory games than there probably is in the next 50 games combined. You know, everything's... the running joke is it's a game you can play in the pool, literally in the pool, because the game board's neoprene, the cards are PVC, the chips are all plastic. There is nothing that can be damaged other than the box, really, by Chip Theory games. These games... Oh, and you can buy magnetic brass minis. Forget plastic minis. Forget metal minis. You can get magnetic, because the chips have a little metal core in them, brass minifigs for Too Many Bones and Burn Cycle, if you want to spend like an extra $200 on literally just little minis that snap onto your chips and march around the board. I can't tell you how long I debated. Do I want to spend that $200? Do I not? And the reality is that $200 could be another 5 games. It could be another half a game. These games are so wildly overproduced. They're so over the top, and they are... It's not just that you don't need these things. These things actually, in these particular games, and I'm talking about the likes of Andromeda's Edge and Skyrise and My Father's Work, these gimmicky toys are the game. You know, when you're playing Chip Theory, Too Many Bones, it's a spectacular game, right? There's a kilo of plastic dice in there. There's, there are chips for days. Without the chips and without those dice, the tangible things that you're moving and sliding around the board like a battle general, there is no game. You know, if you were to swap that out for really uninteresting dice and standees, I don't think there's a game there. You know, it's certainly not a game that's engaging. It's certainly not a game that pulls you in for 4 hours. I think it's the same with Frostpunk. Without that huge tower, it's not that the tower is the game, but the tower really turns it from a hex exploration game of survival into something that you can start to actually feel the tension of, please don't break, please don't break. I've just spent 2 hours. Please don't break. And you throw those cubes in, and one of the cubes comes out the bottom, and you're stuffed. You're stuffed, right? Tapestry is another one. Tapestry, I love Tapestry. Tapestry by Stonemaier Games. Tapestry, just the basic version of Tapestry, has these 3D models that aren't just pre-painted. It looks like they're actually made from different colors of plastic. All the buildings that you're building, and these things go into your city, onto your mat, and it's ridiculous. Tapestry is a great game, but I think if you didn't have all those beautiful buildings in it, it wouldn't be a game you'd want to play. And so this particular category of games, at the end here, they are over the top, ridiculously overproduced. But I think that is what you're buying when you buy those games. These are the deluxe. It's here to stay, whether you like it or not. I mean, the days of getting a Tigris and Euphrates with a brown board and some cubes in basic 5 colors that you're pushing around, you can still get games like that. Absolutely. Well, you can't get Tigris and Euphrates, but you can still get games like that. You can still, Cascadero was a great one that was just published. Ryder Knizia Games, Super Trooper bought that. It's that classic shades of beige with wooden pieces, but those are games that have to stand on their own, and they have to pull you in with the gameplay. And I think in 2024, it's harder to pull people in with gameplay. It's harder to grab people with gameplay and hold them than it is to grab people with toys and hold them, because we want to touch the toys. We want to push the toys around the table. And I'm not saying Cascadero would be a better game with toys. I don't think it would. What I'm saying is I think Deluxification of games is a model of production and publication that is here to stay, because we have this skewed perceived value. Our value proposition has been fundamentally changed. And I'm not blaming consumerism or anything. I'm 50 years old and I sit in my bunker surrounded by toys. I do. I sit here surrounded by toys, and I am not ashamed. And I love it. I absolutely love it. But I do think Deluxification of games, I think producers and developers, particularly some of the more indie developers, are going to have to be very cautious in how they proceed, because you've got these beautiful, great games that are going to be coming out that are going to be completely swept up by the $5 million Cyberpunk campaign, because you can't compete with that toy, the toy of the now. I'm a literal slut for this. Full confession. If I can deluxe a game, I will. Even if I'm only going to be playing 6 or 8 times over the life of the game. So much of my gaming life is solo play. You're all well aware that I play with myself a lot. On a side note, there's a contingent in Canada that's now playing a drinking game, taking a drink whenever I mention playing with myself. So there's 2 for you guys. I am guilty as charged. Right, Super Trooper, Dusty, 000, and Buttercup, and the Fox, and even the Peanut will know that I live in this room. I don't live here. It's not an iron lung. I spend a lot of time in this room, basically surrounded by toys. And I don't specifically go out shopping and picking games for the toys. But I can tell you, if there are 2 versions of a game, and one has the toys and one does not, then I will always buy the one with the toys. One of the things I love about my solo plays is table presence. We've talked about that. It's just me in the bunker, me in the game. And these deluxe pieces make that experience so much more tactile, so much more visceral, and I freaking love it. Is it necessary? No. But neither is owning 200 board games. So why the self-restraint now? Why draw the line now? If it makes you happy, do it. If it doesn't make you happy, don't do it. If you can't afford it, don't do it. Right? This is an expensive hobby. Anyway, that's my favorite thing for this week, Deluxification of games. Now on to my favorite part of the show, where we here, and by we I mean me, give someone the clap. This week, it's occurred to me that I'd not actually ever formally thanked those that helped pull me into this hobby again. Those that introduced me to the world of modern board gaming, without whom I would probably be financially stable, 10 years closer to having a retirement investment. I'd probably have my house nearly paid off. I'd have all my weekends and evenings free. If it weren't for you, I'd probably be out in the sunshine, fresh air, taking in all that life has to offer. But instead, I have a crippling addiction to Amazon's instant delivery business model. Surrounded by half-painted plastic figures, drawers of more Ziploc bags. I have paint stains on my left hand, and all my money, for all time, is committed to a cavalcade of ever-evolving future releases, most of which I will look at longingly for weeks, if not months, before ever getting played. I have a board game bunker in my home. It's a temple of cardboard and plastic. It's purple neon and adult Lego. It's 82 Kallax cubes packed full of a whole lot of happy. It's glossy boxes. It's glossy boxes filled with bits of plastic, dice, metal coins, foam core inserts, and I have a zeal for little plastic sleeves to hold little slices of cardboard, and I've never been fucking happier. You know who you are. This is for you, mofos. And that's this week's Dirty Talk. You can reach us on all the socials. Find us on Facebook by searching One Man Clapping. You can email One Man Clapping with a W-O-N. That's W-O-O-N manclapping @gmail.com, as in I've won all the games. We're on Instagram at One Man Clapping with the number 1. That's number 1 Man Clapping. You can join the One Man Clapping Guild on BGG. Subscribe to Guild 4426. There's absolutely nothing there now, but more activity on there in the coming weeks. I know I keep promising that. That's actually going to happen once I work out what we're going to do with that guild. PAX is coming. I'll be transmitting live from PAX. I might do some live streams. There'll certainly be some grabs and bites. So we might put some of that on the guild. I'm hoping to bump into some great characters down there. Thank you as always for your time, for letting me insert myself into your auditory orifices. It's been an indescribable pleasure. This episode has been brought to you by lower back pain and the existential dread of being, and has been made financially possible by StretchPay. Until next time, get your game on, even if you've got to play with yourself. Dance like no one is watching. And by dance, I mean play board games. Peace out, mofos. Now, where did I put the tears of my enemies?